Welcome to The Real Debrief, the show where we dive deep into the world of film production, exploring the genres you love, the projects making waves, and the trends shaping the industry. We're here to give you a 360-degree review for entertainment professionals. So grab your popcorn and get ready for some expert insights. And, well, the occasional bed joke from Talen. It's The Real Debrief. Now your hosts, Talen and Lisa.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of our Film Deep Dive podcast. I'm Talen, and as always, I'm joined by my incredible co-host, Lisa.
Hey Talen. Hey everyone. Today we have a really special film to discuss. It's one that delves deep into historical trauma, but also brings forward messages of hope, kindness, and personal transformation. We're talking about Whitebird, directed by Mark Forster. It's a film that serves as both a spin-off and a prequel to Wonder, and it takes the story of Julian, the bully from Wonder, and expands on his journey in a really profound way.
That's right. Whitebird takes us on an unexpected journey, shifting from Julian's modern-day world to the harrowing time of World War II. What's fascinating is that instead of focusing directly on the life of Augie, the protagonist from Wonder, we get to see the story of Julian's grandmother, played by Helen Mirren, and how she survived the Nazi occupation of France as a young Jewish girl. Her story becomes this powerful lesson for Julian as he tries to grapple with the mistakes of his past.
And it's such an interesting narrative choice, isn't it? Julian was one of the most complex characters in Wonder. He was expelled from school for bullying Augie, and Whitebird picks up with him feeling isolated and rejected at his new school. His journey of self-awareness begins when his grandmother, Sarah, decides to share her personal story of survival and compassion. That's where the bulk of the film takes place, through these flashbacks to Nazi-occupied France.
Yeah, and that shift from a present-day narrative to a historical one is such a bold move. It adds a lot of depth to what could have been a simple redemption arc for Julian. Instead, this film asks us to consider the larger consequences of cruelty and kindness, not just in a school setting, but in one of the darkest periods of human history. And it's remarkable how Mark Forster, who's known for his work on films like The Kite Runner and Finding Neverland, manages to bring both the gravity of the Holocaust and the intimacy of Sarah's personal story to the screen.
Forster's directorial style is definitely a highlight. He has this ability to take stories about deep trauma and infuse them with hope and resilience. Whitebird is no different. While the backdrop of Nazi-occupied France is undeniably bleak, Forster focuses on the small acts of kindness that can shine through even in the darkest of times. It's the relationship between young Sarah and Julian that really drives the film.
Exactly. And for those who haven't seen the film yet, young Sarah, played by Ariel Glasser, is a Jewish girl living in France during the Nazi occupation. She's forced into hiding when a boy from her class, Julian, played by Orlando Schwartz, takes her in and shelters her with his family. What's poignant about their relationship is that Sarah had previously overlooked Julian in school. He had polio, and she, like many of her peers, didn't really see him. But in this moment of crisis, it's Julian who steps up and shows her kindness in a way that she never expected.
That's right, and it's that kindness that becomes the central theme of the film. Through Julian's actions, Sarah learns the value of compassion, and this is the lesson that she ultimately passes down to her grandson, Julian. The film constantly reminds us that kindness isn't just a one-time act. It's something that can ripple across generations, and in that sense, Whitebird feels like a natural extension of Wonder's themes of empathy and understanding.
Oh, I love how you framed that, Lisa. The film really does feel like it's continuing the message that Wonder started, but it takes it to a deeper, more historical level. The relationship between Sarah and Julian is so moving because it's born out of necessity, but it grows into something much more profound. They go from being classmates who barely know each other to becoming each other's lifeline. And what's beautiful is how this relationship mirrors Julian's own journey of learning what it means to be kind.
That's a great point. We see young Sarah and Julian's relationship unfold in such a nuanced way. At first, Sarah is hesitant to trust Julian, which makes sense given the danger and fear that surrounds them. But over time, she realizes that his kindness is genuine, and they form this really strong bond. It's not just about survival, it's about finding humanity in each other during a time when the world around them is descending into chaos.
And speaking of chaos, let's talk about the way the film portrays the Nazi occupation. It's a delicate balance, right? On one hand, Forster has to depict the terror of that time. There are scenes of Jewish families being rounded up and sent to concentration camps, and there's this constant threat looming over Sarah and Julian. But, on the other hand, the film is still accessible to younger audiences. It doesn't shy away from the horrors of the Holocaust, but it does present them in a way that's not overly graphic or traumatizing.
That's a tricky line to walk, but I think the film does a good job of maintaining that balance. The cinematography in particular plays a big role in creating the sense of foreboding without being too overwhelming. The colors are muted, and there's the sense of stillness in the way the camera lingers on small details. A glimpse of a Nazi uniform, the sound of boots marching in the distance, these subtle clues remind us of the danger that Sarah and Julian are constantly under, even in moments of calm.
Yeah, and I think that approach is really effective. I mean, it gives the film a sense of quiet tension that builds throughout without resorting to graphic violence. Okay, so there's this one scene where Sarah and Julian are playing a game in the forest, and for a moment you forget the danger they're in. But then you hear the distant sound of gunfire and you're immediately reminded of the stakes. It's those kinds of contrasts that makes the film so powerful.
That scene really stuck with me as well. It's such a poignant reminder of how war affects every aspect of life, even the smallest moments of joy. And I think that's part of what makes White Bird such an emotionally resonant film. It's not just about the big dramatic moments. It's about the little moments of connection that happen in between the chaos. The film reminds us that even in the darkest times, there are still moments of beauty and kindness.
Absolutely, and those moments of beauty and kindness are what make this film feel so hopeful, despite the heavy subject matter. Mark Forster is no stranger to telling stories about resilience in the face of adversity, and I think White Bird fits perfectly within his body of work. He has this ability to find light in even the darkest of stories, and that's what makes the film feel so uplifting, even as it deals with the trauma of the Holocaust.
And let's not forget about the performances. Helen Mirren, of course, is brilliant as always. She brings this gravitas to the role of Julian's grandmother, but she also has these moments of vulnerability that make her character feel so real. There's a scene toward the end of the film where she reflects on the loss of Julian and how that shaped her life, and it's just heartbreaking. You can feel the weight of everything she's been through, but there's also this sense of peace, knowing that she survived and was able to pass on these important lessons to her grandson.
Mirren is phenomenal. She really anchors the film and gives it this emotional depth that's hard to look away from. And as young Sarah, Ariella Glasser does an incredible job too. She brings this mix of innocence and strength to the role that's really compelling. You can see her character grow through the film, from being this scared, unsure girl to someone who learns to trust and love again, despite everything she's been going through.
Yes, Glazer is fantastic. And then there's Orlando Schwartz, who plays young Julian. He's such a pivotal character. And Schwartz really brings him to life in a way that feels authentic. Julian is someone who's been overlooked by his peers because of his disability, but he doesn't let that define him. Instead, he becomes this quiet hero who shows Sarah what it means to be truly kind. Their chemistry on screen is so natural, and you can really feel the bond that forms between them.
Yeah, their relationship is definitely the heart of the film, and I think it's what makes White Bird stand out in the genre of Holocaust narratives. I never thought I'd say that sentence, but we've seen many films about this time period, but White Bird focuses on the personal, intimate moments of connection that happen amidst the horror. It's a film that's as much about love and friendship as it is about survival, and I think that's what makes it so unique. Sure, continuing from where we left off, what makes White Bird really shine, especially within the genre of Holocaust narratives, is its focus on the individuals and their ability to find light in the darkness. I mean, the friendship between Sarah and Julian might have started out of necessity, but it blossoms into something profound and deeply moving. It's a testament to how even the smallest acts of kindness can leave a lasting legacy. And this is something that is echoed across many reviews of the film. It's not just about survival, it's about how we choose to live and connect with others during times of immense hardship.
That's such a good point, Talen. One of the critiques that's often leveled at films about the Holocaust is that they can sometimes feel overwhelming or overly focused on the broader historical context without delving deep enough into the individual stories. White Bird manages to avoid that by zooming in on these two young characters who, despite everything going on around them, are able to create their own little world of hope and care. In that way, the film offers a refreshing perspective on this well-covered historical period.
Yes, and speaking of refreshing perspectives, let's talk a little more about the way White Bird handles its historical setting. We've seen many Holocaust films that focus on the atrocities and the violence, but White Bird takes a different approach entirely. The film doesn't shy away from the horrors of the Nazi occupation, but it also gives equal weight to the moments of peace, beauty, and kindness that occur within that setting. There's a scene where Sarah and Julian are sitting in a forest, playing a simple game, and for a moment they forget the war entirely. I mean, it's a beautiful reminder that life goes on, even in the darkest of times.
That scene is one of my favorites as well. There's something so powerful about seeing these two young people who have every reason to be afraid find joy in such a simple moment. It's a testament to the human spirit, really. Even in the face of unimaginable suffering, we find ways to connect with each other, to laugh, and to hold on to hope.
And that's what makes White Bird such an important film. It's not just about the Holocaust. It's about what it means to be human and the ways in which we find light even in the darkest moments. The film reminds us that kindness is a powerful force, one that can change lives and transcend generations. And I think that's a message we can all take to heart, especially in today's world.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the negativity that surrounds us, but White Bird is a reminder that even small acts of kindness can make a huge difference. Julian's decision to help Sarah wasn't some grand heroic gesture. It was a quiet, personal act of compassion, but it changed both of their lives in profound ways, and that's something we can all learn from.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the reasons why White Bird resonates so strongly with audiences. It's a film that's deeply personal, yet its message is universal. Whether you're a fan of Wonder or new to the story, there's something in White Bird that will speak to you.
Well said, Talen. So before we wrap up, let's touch briefly on the film's visual style. We mentioned earlier that the film has this kind of storybook feel to it, which has drawn some mixed reviews. While critics feel that the polished aesthetic detracts from the realism of the story, others have praised it for making the film more accessible to younger audiences. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a valid point, and I can see both sides of the argument. On one hand, the polished production design and cinematography do give the film a more accessible, almost dreamlike quality. It's visually stunning, but some might argue that it sensationalizes the harsh reality of the Holocaust. On the other hand, I think Mark Forster made a deliberate choice to present the story in this way. Knowing that the film would be seen by younger audiences, it's a fine balance between making the historical context clear without overwhelming viewers with the graphic details.
I agree. And I think the film succeeds in striking that balance. It's clear that the filmmakers wanted to convey the gravity of the situation, but they also wanted to focus on the humanity of the characters and the message of kindness. The visual style helps to soften the harshness of the subject matter without diminishing its importance.
Yeah, and that's something I really appreciate about the film. It's not trying to be a documentary or an exhaustive portrayal of the Holocaust. It's a personal story that focuses on the emotional journey of these characters. And the visual style supports that. It creates a kind of contrast between the beauty of the French countryside and the horrors of the Nazi occupation, which makes the moments of connection between Sarah and Julian all the more poignant.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the reasons why Whitebird works so well as a family film. It's a story that parents can watch with their children and use as a starting point for deeper conversations about history, kindness, and empathy. The film doesn't shy away from the difficult topics, but it presents them in a way that feels approachable.
Yeah, exactly. It's the kind of film that can spark important discussions, not just about the past, but about how we treat each other in the present. And that's one of the things that makes Whitebird so powerful. It's not just a story about history. It's a story about how we choose to live our lives today.
I couldn't agree more, Talen. Whitebird is a film that leaves you thinking long after the credits roll, and I think that's the mark of a truly great story. Whether you're watching it for the first time or revisiting it after reading the graphic novel, it's a film that stays with you.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so if you haven't seen Whitebird yet, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful, heartfelt film that's full of important lessons about kindness, resilience, and the power of human connection. Thanks for tuning in today, everyone. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into this incredible film.
Yes, and thank you for listening. And don't forget to share your thoughts with us. What did you think of Whitebird? We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, remember to always lead with kindness.
Take care, everyone.
This has been The Real Debrief. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, like, rate, and review. We'll see you soon on The Real Debrief.